Today we're going to be exploring the wealthiest street in the entire world. This is Billionaires Row. We're standing right outside of 432 Park Avenue. And we're going to be going building by building and giving an in-depth history lesson on all of the buildings that make up New York City's Billionaires Row. We'll start here at 432 Park. This was completed in late 2015, and the building stands at 1,396 feet tall. There's 96 stories in this tower, and it was developed by CIM Group and Harry Macklowe. The architect on this deal is the famous Raphael Vignoli, famous for coming up with the design of these gorgeous 10-foot by 10-foot windows. The building comes fully kitted with an indoor swimming pool, a private dining restaurant, full-service gym and staff. You have sweeping views overlooking New York City's Central Park and Midtown Manhattan. Now, there has been some controversy as it relates to 432 Park Avenue. There's been many construction defects as well as lawsuits. This is the main public area, the public space that sits just outside of 432 Park. Many people don't know this, but this is totally open to the public. You can come here 24 hours a day, 365, and sit down in this beautiful park and take in the sights and sounds of Midtown Manhattan. As I zoom in here, this is the retail front of 432 Park that is currently occupied by Phillips Auction House. As a fun fact, when the building opened, Harry Macklowe, who is the developer, put his new wife and himself, massive portrait, on the side of the building. We'll walk directly up to the building here. You can see it's open to the public 24 hours a day. And you have a little bit of an excerpt of the 432 Park Avenue Plaza. One of the main defects about the building is the cracking on the facade, which many architects and engineers say this could have been completely avoided, but the developer, Harry Macklowe, wanted to keep the building looking white as opposed to a darker gray if they used stronger concrete. So there's been many repairs on the building, and currently if you want to purchase a unit inside the building, it would need to be done in cash because a bank would not lend on the deal. I think you can get a lot of good deals in this building now, as on the market you have a flood of inventory. If you want to see what it looks like inside 432 Park Avenue, please go to our property tours section of the YouTube channel, where we tour in person a unit at 432 Park and do a personal look at all of the amenities. Now, I'll give you one more look at the main valet at 432 Park, and then we will head to our next stop, which is going to be the Crown Building that houses the Aman residences. A major political event that has been striking controversy in and around Billionaires Row is the brand new mayor of New York City, Zohran Mamdani, announcing a pied-à-terre tax. A pied-à-terre is essentially a residence that is not your primary residence. And oftentimes on Billionaires Row, you have international buyers that will stay at one of their residences on Billionaires Row or in the city potentially only 1 or 2 months out of the year, sometimes even less. We're now on the corner of East 56th Street and Park Avenue, and I want to direct your attention to this building across the street. This is 425 Park. This is one of the newest Class A office towers in New York City, a completely eco-friendly building, which is the temporary headquarters of Citadel and Citadel Securities. Citadel is the hedge fund owned by Ken Griffin, and Citadel Securities is their massive market-making business. Citadel is one of the largest liquidity providers in the financial markets today. Here you can see the main entrance to Phillips. And looking down, you could even see some of the contemporary art. We're going to walk up to 57th Street and make a left and head all the way down to 5th Avenue. This is the Aston Martin showroom here. And across the street, you'll be able to see the Four Seasons Hotel on New York City's Billionaires Row. Now, there are some other Billionaires buildings in and around this neighborhood that aren't technically on 57th Street, with one of my favorites being 520 Park Avenue, which was developed by the Zeckendorf brothers with the architecture by Robert A.M. Stern. Robert A.M. Stern unfortunately passed away on Thanksgiving Day. This past year, 2025. All along 57th Street, you'll have lots of luxury boutiques. There's another look at 432 Park. Here you have the Richard Mill. Which is quite fitting. We're now standing directly across the street from the Four Seasons Hotel on New York City's Billionaires Row. And there's rumors that they're going to condominiumize some of the units in here. So you'll have the opportunity to purchase units inside the Four Seasons on 57th Street. As we approach the corner of Madison Avenue, you're going to see a very famous office tower It's 590 Madison Avenue. That is the IBM building. Now, IBM has a significantly smaller footprint in the building now. Recently, you had Apollo Global, which is one of the world's largest private equity giants, sign a massive blockbuster lease in the building. You also have the Corcoran Group. You have Fendi, you have Dior. This past holiday season, the Dior store had the best holiday windows, in my opinion. This is the Fuller building that houses Fendi. This is 595 Madison Avenue. Here we have 590 Madison. They have a literal taxi cab on display at the Dior store. We're also going to walk right past the Tiffany building, which was acquired. The company Tiffany was acquired by LVMH Moët Hennessy. And they put about $500 million into the renovation of the main Tiffany flagship on Fifth Avenue. And just a week into opening, the building had a massive fire in the basement, causing millions of dollars worth of damage. Here you have a nice Bentley with the Burberry stores, Saint Laurent. This is the temporary Louis Vuitton store right here. Across the street on Fifth Avenue to the north, you'll see this massive Louis Vuitton trunk. And that is to mask the scaffolding until the main Louis Vuitton store can open. Here you have it. This is the brand new Tiffany & Co. right on the corner of 57th Street and Fifth Avenue. Now, as we're headed over toward Fifth, you're going to see the Crown Building at 730 Fifth, now home to the Aman, New York Hotel. We'll wait for the fire truck to go by. This is the massive Louis Vuitton trunk that masks the scaffolding. Now, the Crown Building was built in 1921 and designed by Warren and Wetmore in a French Renaissance style. You'll be able to see the full makeup of the facade as we stand on the corner of 57th Street and 5th. It's really a remarkable building. Go ahead and cross the street by the Bergdorf Goodman. Here you can really make out the details of the building. This was originally the Heckscher Building. It was actually the first home of the Museum of Modern Art from 1929 to 1932. The landmark building underwent a massive renovation and conversion into the ultra-luxury Aman Hotel and Residences, which opened in 2022. Room rates can go upwards of $4,000 a night, but on most nights, the cheapest room you'll be able to get is right around $1,500. This is looking at the main facade of the Tiffany building, in which case you have a restaurant at the top. A little bit of a fun fact. Stock trader Jesse Livermore used to have an office inside the Crown Building, in which he later moved on to the Sherry Netherland Hotel, which sits right at the corner of Central Park, adjacent the Plaza Hotel. Walk right past the main entrance to the Aman. But first, I'll give you one more look at the Louis Vuitton building, and the building to the left with all of the scaffolding all over it is the Sherry Netherland. If you want to see what it looks like inside the Sherry Netherland Hotel, I filmed a tour of the entire 17th floor that's on the market right now. As I point the camera up, you could really get a sense for every building on Billionaires Row, with the Steinway Tower, 157, and Central Park Tower visible. Here's the main entrance to the Aman. The office building across the street is currently leasing out their office space at record levels and record price per rentable square foot. It is 9 West 57th Street, and that's home to one of the most successful hedge funds in the world, Tiger Management, Tiger Global. It is run by the hedge fund billionaire Chase Coleman, who originally got his start on Wall Street working for the legend of hedge funds himself. As a little bit of a bonus, we'll look southbound at this building on 53rd Street. This is 53 West 53rd Street. This is the Jean Nouvel building. This is another Billionaires Row-esque building that also has a restaurant in the basement of the building. (9 West 57th Street). As we talked about, houses the most successful Tiger Cub. I think this is an Aman branded Maybach. Julian Robertson, who is the founder of hedge funds, the majority of the analysts and portfolio managers that used to work for Julian Robertson broke off and started their own hedge funds. And those hedge funds are called the Tiger Cubs. And you have one of the most successful Tiger Cubs in that building. This development site across the street is set to be turned into yet another super tall on 57th Street. You have this one holdout brownstone here, which is actually quite gorgeous. But unfortunately, that will be set for demolition to make way for yet another massive, ultra luxury super tall tower. We're going to continue to head westbound on 57th Street towards 6th Avenue. I'll give you one last look of this holdout building, which is actually quite beautiful. As we pan up to the Steinway Tower, which is the building we're going to talk about next, which is 111 West 57th Street. The building stands at 1,428 feet tall, about 84 stories. That was developed by JDS Development Group and Property Markets Group. The architect on that deal is Shop Architects. And it holds the record for the world's skinniest skyscraper with a 21-to-1 width to height ratio. It's also the skinniest residential apartment building in the entire world. But at the base of the building, you're going to see the original Steinway Hall that was built in 1925 by Warren and Wetmore for the Steinway and Sons Piano Company. It was actually the showroom, as well as the recital hall. and office building. The tower has the majority of the residents in the super tall building, but you do have the ability to purchase units in the original Steinway Hall, which is that limestone facade with the gold outer trim that you'll see in just a moment. If you've ever watched Shark Tank, Robert Herjavec has a really, really nice unit inside Steinway Tower, which I believe he sold his unit inside 157 and used the proceeds to roll up into Steinway Tower. Now this building right here is pretty controversial as well. It might not look like much, but Michael Dell is actually one of the landholders, well, one of the owners of the land under the Carnegie House. And the problem with that is the rent is set to go up. So whoever owns inside the Carnegie House at 100 West 57th Street, their common charges are about to absolutely explode, which might push the majority of residents out of that building. You got to understand, even though you own a unit at the Carnegie House, you don't own the land under the building. And now that that lease is up, the owners of that land are set to increase prices in a major way. And one of the owners is Michael Dell, who just so happens to have one of the most expensive apartments at 157. Now you might be asking yourself, what is the appeal of many of these buildings? In which case, they are condominiums. And if you think back about the history of New York City real estate, many foreign investors or foreign buyers or would-be foreign buyers were essentially pushed out of New York City because of the prevalence of co-ops. And in a cooperative, you do not own your individual property rights. You own shares within a corporation. And let's say if the apartment's 10 million bucks, well, even if you had the money, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be able to purchase in the building, because you have to get approved by the co-op board, and they, by law, can deny you for any reason. So back in the day, a lot of co-op boards would decline and deny foreign buyers because they wanted to keep the buildings, quote unquote, American wealth and American money. A lot of real estate developers saw this and caught on to that trend, so they started developing condos marketed towards ultra-wealthy foreigners. In a condo, even though you need condo board approval, if the condo board decides to deny you, well, they have one caveat. They need to honor the deal and purchase the unit at the same exact price you offered. And since that would trigger a massive assessment and nobody would do that, foreign buyers are able to purchase inside these condos at little to no cost. We'll rush over across the street and I'll show you the original plaque here of Steinway Hall. This is a landmarked building. You can see Steinway Hall, constructed in 1924 to 1925 to the designs of Warren and Wetmore for Steinway & Sons, the piano manufacturing firm that has been a dominant force in its industry since the late 1860s after Carnegie Hall opened in 1891. I mean, it does have just a beautifully striking facade. And then you have the main flag here outside of the awning that if we zoom in, You'll see 111 West 57th Street. Now turning around, you have a pretty great view overlooking the east side of Manhattan of the Crown Building, where we just were, and 432 Park Avenue. So you essentially see straight down on all of your neighbors that live on the row as well. All right, well, the next stop on our tour is going to be 157, or 157 West 57th Street. And this was the first building ever constructed on New York City's Billionaires Row. And it was the pioneering building developed by Extel. Now, it took Extel over a decade to assemble all the necessary land and the air rights to be able to build 157. They're the only developer that owns, or that built, rather, 2 buildings on New York City's Billionaires Row. .157 sits right on the corner of 6th and a half Avenue and 57th Street. I actually want to cross the street for all of you because I want to give you a sense of the design on the facade. Now, the architect who came up with the design for the facade is Christian Day Potsdam Park. And particularly on a sunny day, if you stand across the street and when the sun hits the facade of the building, it kind of gives off the impression of a waterfall coming down the side. And that's the exact effect that Christian Day Potsdam Park wanted to give off. So we'll go ahead and cross now. Obviously, 157 has luxury residences, condominiums, but it also houses a 5-star hotel, in my opinion, one of the best in New York City, and that is the Park Hyatt. So if you choose to own a residence inside 157, you have access to all of the 5-star amenities that the Park Hyatt offers. You can see door number 1 here, the main awning. That's the Park Hyatt New York, and door number 2 is the entrance to the residences. Now I'm going to pan the camera up the facade of the building so you can kind of see that waterfall effect. There's alternating panes of blue glass on the building that really glistens in the sun. Both Michael Dell and hedge fund billionaire Bill Ackman both own trophy units in the building that is across the street from the famous Russian tea room. Here you can see the Park Hyatt New York. This is a really good angle. From this angle, from right to left, you can see the Steinway Tower, 157, Central Park Tower, and 220 Central Park South. This is the famous Russian tea room. We'll walk straight past Carnegie Hall, which finally has all of the scaffolding down. This is one of my favorite buildings architecturally in New York. If you're curious what some of the units look like inside 157, you could scroll to the apartment tours section of the channel.
Saturday, Monday on the road.
Across the street on 7th and 57th is the Osborne. This is also one of my favorite buildings as well. It's more of a classic look architecturally speaking and causes quite the juxtaposition from the massive super tall that you see of Extel's Central Park Tower. One more angle of 157 and we'll cross the street. Where I want to take all of you to Alwyn Court. If you're visiting New York City's 57th Street this summer, you have got to stand on the corner of 58th Street and 6th Avenue and check out Alwyn Court. As we're waiting for the light, look at how gorgeous Carnegie Hall looks now without the scaffolding. You can see above, it says Music Hall founded by Andrew Carnegie. This is actually a pretty good bar here. P.J. Carney's. This was established in 1929. This place has a really, really good hamburger, in my opinion. P.J. Carney's Pub. Right in front of Alwyn Court sits the New York Athletic Club. Looks like it just might rain in New York. Okay, this is one of my favorite shots in all New York City. Right now you're looking directly at Alwyn Court. And the reason why I love it so much is because you get the most striking juxtaposition between the old New York and the new New York. So take my advice and get an up close and personal look at Alwyn Court when you choose to visit New York. We'll now head back to 57th Street, where we will make a right. The next building that we're going to be checking out is Extel's Central Park Tower that stands at 217 West 57th Street. If you want to know what it looks like to be over 100 stories high in the sky at Central Park Tower, feel free to click the link in the description where we tour the inside of the duplex at Central Park Tower that's on the market for over $100 million. And let me know what you think of the views. There's actually a beautiful studio apartment inside the Osborne that has been totally kitted out as a library that I wouldn't mind purchasing one day. This is another landmarked building. I think this was built in 1883. Now you might notice the Art Student League of New York. And the Art Student League of New York played a critical and pivotal role in the construction of Central Park Tower. And that's because Extel, or Gary Burnett, purchased the air rights above the Art Student League of New York so that he could extend the building further east to preserve some of the Central Park views. So you'll notice this really drastic cantilevering effect over Central Park Tower. Now the main anchor tenant on the retail is Nordstrom. And you can see a little bit of that cantilevering effect over to the east. And that is to preserve the Central Park views from Vornado's 220 Central Park South. Now Vornado was battling Extel's CEO because Vornado had a very, very precious lot just in front of Central Park Tower. That was once a parking garage. And in order for Vornado to preserve the Midtown Manhattan views for its clients, they reached a sort of a quid pro quo agreement. Where Extel agreed to move their building over a little bit to the east, and Vornado decided to move their building a little bit over to the west, so that each could have preserved Central Park and Midtown Manhattan views. We're now going to make a right on Broadway, heading all the way up into Columbus Circle, in which case you're going to see One Central Park West directly in the distance, which we'll talk about in just a moment. That is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. now going to make a right on 58th Street, in which case you're going to see the facade of Vornado's 220 Central Park South. It has a beautiful limestone facade. I would say 220 Central Park South is probably the most sought after building on Billionaires Row. It has about 87 units in the building total. And as I point the camera towards the sky, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. You'll see that Extel's Central Park Tower is moved a little bit over to the right, and 220 Central Park South has moved over a little bit to the left. And that's all because of an agreement that the developers came to in order to preserve each building's respective views. It's very similar architecturally to 15 Central Park West, which is a Zeckendorf development, but the architects are the same.
By the way, on their knees.
I'm going to stand just outside on the curb here. This is the main parking garage at Central Park Tower. And as I point the camera up, that's that cantilever we were talking about. And the only way that that cantilever is possible is because Extel purchased the air rights over the Art Student League of New York. And again, this is so the building could be extended a little bit further over to the east, so that all of those units could have that much extra Central Park views, in which case they wouldn't be obstructed by Vornado's 220 Central Park South. Now there's two components to 220 Central Park South. This is the main building that stands at 950 feet tall, but then you have the villas that sit right on Central Park. So you have absolute Central Park frontage here. And these are all villa apartments that are sold out. Many people don't know that, but there are two components to the building. Beautiful landscaping throughout, as well as an in-residence waterfall. And this is the private garage and entrance you see here. Look at how elegant it looks in there. We're now going to make a slight right on Broadway and head around Columbus Circle. It's really quite nice here. You have a Magnolia Bakery. You also have the Maria. Around Columbus Circle, you also have the Mandarin Oriental Hotel. Inside the Deutsche Bank Center. So as you see these two big towers in front of you, this was the former AOL Time Warner Center. You have private residences as well as the Mandarin Oriental inside, and the German bulge bracket investment bank, Deutsche Bank, that is now relocated from Wall Street into the new Class A office tower. I'm going to make a right on Central Park South, just so you can see the front entrance to 220 Central Park South. From here, you can kind of see that mini skyline of the Upper East Side. You have the Pierre Hotel, 520 Park Avenue, which is that other Zeckendorf building I was telling you about earlier. And then, of course, unfortunately, with all the scaffolding on it, the Sherry Netherland Hotel. This is Maria, that was temporarily closed, but it's now underwent a complete renovation. It's actually a very, very good restaurant, great place to eat.
Yeah.
Central Park looks fantastic right now. Okay, folks, here we are at the entrance to 220 Central Park South. This is the entrance to the main villa apartments. I really love the American flags there. It's very 15 Central Park West-esque. Certainly nods to Robert A.M. Stern. We're now going to head over to 1 Central Park West. Many people don't know this, but 1 Central Park West used to be an office building. Donald Trump purchased it and converted it into an international hotel and residences. The building was built in 1970, and it was converted in the mid-90s. Of course, the lower floors of the hotel, with the luxury condos above. It has prime views of Columbus Circle, all of Central Park, the Hudson River, and Billionaires Row. That's why I think I may like the views from 1 Central Park West better than actually on Billionaires Row, because you get the best of both worlds in a sense. It's the main entrance to Maria. Once we have the light, we're going to be crossing northbound and doing a lap around Columbus Circle. Where we will reach our last and final stop on today's Billionaires Row walking tour. That would be 15 Central Park West, which is also called the Limestone Jesus. The building was actually constructed during the depths of the great financial crisis, but it was also one of the best-selling buildings ever in New York. The building itself sits on the old site of the Mayflower Hotel. It achieved a complete sellout for around $2 billion. Some notable residents include Daniel Loeb, billionaire hedge fund manager, and the former CEO of Goldman Sachs, Lloyd Blankfein. Sandy Weil also used to have a unit at 15 Central Park West, in which case he sold the building. Now, they do have studio apartments available at 15 Central Park West, but they're only available to people who've purchased larger apartments. So the studios that are in the building are mainly used for staff, for maids, or for guests or family when they come over to visit. Looks like we have a pretty nice street festival going on. It smells really good. Here's a better look at the Trump International Hotel and Tower.
Ride up.
Look at this view looking back on Billionaires Row. And here we have it. This is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. Great location, just starting the Upper West Side of Manhattan. Now you have 3 distinct entryways to the building, one of which is a Michelin star restaurant called Jean-Georges. The middle door is the hotel. And then the third door closest to 15 Central Park West are those private residences. You can see some of the guests coming out. Door number 1 here. This is Jean-Georges. Of course, everything has the gold outer trim. This is door number 2. That is the hotel, and then the last door are the private residences. And here we have it. This is the limestone Jesus building. Now, Robert A.M. Stern and the Zeckendorf brothers procured the exact same limestone that was used to construct the Empire State Building. This comes from an Indiana rock quarry. On the facade, you'll see here developer Zeckendorf Development and architects Robert A.M. Stern. I mean, you could imagine looking out on your balconies, your terraces. Here you have the main valet entrance at 15 Central Park West. Now, if you guys enjoyed today's Billionaires Row walking tour, subscribe to the channel for more, leave a like on the video, and as always, we will see you in the next one, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.